This is how I made a smokeless burn pit out of a 55-gallon barrel. Let's get started. So I have this 4.5-inch 60 grit flat disc here, and you're going to need this for grinding the top lip of the barrel to take the lid off if you have an enclosed barrel. That's what it does, is it exposes those seams and then the top just sort of pushes right off. Once you're finished doing that, you want to mark out half of the barrel, so just go down and make your marks all the way around and then draw a line somehow. Boom, just cut the barrel in half. Take that flat disc and deburr because you don't want to be getting metal splinters all over your hands. Now you're going to wrap it in a strap like I've got here, and you're going to, from the seam, come down 6 inches. You're going to be cutting that line and the seam line and taking about 6 inches out of the barrel. And you're going to use the straps to hold it together while you put self-tapping screws in to reconnect the barrel. So essentially you're making a smaller barrel. And just go on the inside with your little grinding wheel and cut the screws off. Now, I took this little 4-inch by 4-inch square and I'm marking squares out all the way around the bottom lip of the inner barrel, the smaller barrel, evenly, because I'm going to be making cuts. These are going to be the vents, and I'm also going to use part of these for the legs as well.
So what I basically did here was I did, cut, skip, cut, skip, cut, skip, cut, skip, and I marked out the legs as evenly as I could so that they would always fall on a skip. And now you're gonna cut these out to make vents, and you're gonna cut the legs a different way to make the legs, and I'll show you right now.
So cut along the bottom, one side, and the top of all of your cut squares, okay? You want to make sure you do it the same on every one of them so that you're bending it the same way. And you don't have to bend it in all the way, just bend it in enough. And on the legs, you're going to cut both sides and the top, leaving the section attached at the bottom lip.
All right, so when you bend these, crimp these together with your pliers. The idea is that this is gonna push and it's gonna knock up against this lip right here, and it's not gonna go down any further. The idea isn't that it sits like this, because then it's gonna bend down that way. It's gonna push over like this, and you see it's gonna knock in and it's not gonna go any further. Another thing is, everybody else that does their legs, they do them symmetrically, but because of the amount of squares that are in this, I can't do that, and it's more important to me to have a symmetrical number of vents than it is a symmetrical number of legs. Understand? So, yeah. Let's cut the legs. Make sure this thing can stand up, which it can. Check that out. Looking good, brother. All right, so along the top of the inner barrel, you're going to be making little slits. This is a 1.5-inch square little jig that I made, and along the top, and look how crooked my straight line is. I'm not a welder. What do you want? But you're going to be setting it like this. Boom, straight down, about 1.5 inches. Boom. Understand? And then do it again. Do it again. Go all the way along the barrel like that, and then below the 1.5 inches, you're going to be putting a little dot at 3 inches below each one of these. So it's going to be like right in the center, like right here. See what I'm doing? This is a little 3-inch jig I made. Right here, just like this. And you're going to be cutting these lines and drilling these until they're about 1.5 or 2 inches. And that's what makes the magic happen.
Get you a step down bit for that. This thing is a lifesaver. You don't even have to pre-drill the holes.
All right, now you're going to want to sit your inner barrel on top of the bottom of your outer barrel and center it as good as you can. Take a measuring tape and make some measurements if you have to. And you want to trace it and cut it out. Oh, and this is in case y'all are wondering, this is a metallic brush marker. I got this at the Dollar Tree. It works great for this. For this next part, I turn the barrel like this so that I can cut that off. I'm not using a jigsaw. I'm going to be using the angle grinder, but I needed this to be kind of stable, so I set it up here. And I bought these little clamps at the Dollar Tree for $3 freaking, and they're the most awesome thing I've ever paid $3 for. So I just clamped one on each side of it like that. See there? And now the barrel can't roll.
This takes a lot of patience, and you have to hold the grinder at an angle, and don't try to go all the way through on one pass, because this grinder is going to get away from you and you're not going to have a circle.
For cutting the triangles on the grate, I just took this piece of metal and I drew, 2 lines through it like that. And I took a little circle and put it in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 4 triangles from here to about, 2 inches from the edge. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll see what I do with them in a second. So I'm not going all the way to here. I'm going to about right here. I'm going to leave that part in the center. So find the middle of this and just, let's say I want my triangle to be about this. Well, how big do I want this to be? That's good. So maybe like just put this little stick. You can probably use whatever you want to, but come over here to the middle so that it makes a point. Draw out till you get to about right there. All right, see what I did? I'm going to do the same thing on the side. You're just going to go just like that. All right, and when it looks like the X-Men symbol, you're done. So you're going to cut down one line outside, bend them in. But make sure you do this. Make sure you do it the same way on every one of them so that it bends to create like a draft. And I'm sure there's a more scientific way to measure this out, y'all, than the way I did it, but it's not rocket surgery. You know what I mean? All right, so when you bend these, you don't have to bend them all the way, right? You can just kind of bend them halfway like this, but what you want to keep in mind is, you see the way this is creating a vortex going in this direction right here? That's the way you want to bend these. So you don't want these to be bent. Let me just drop this down in here. You don't want these to be bent so that they're not traveling with that air. So you don't want these bent that way because they're going to be blocking the air that comes in. You want the air to travel with these. So when you drop it in there, just remember that. Looks like I might have to grind down the edges of that a little bit to make it fit better, but that's okay. All right, and the last step, this is my outer barrel. This is the section, this is going to be the top because it's got that lip that's going to go around those little things that I made that I'm going to bend over. The bottom, you need to put holes along the bottom so air can get in here. So I made this is the little jig I was using earlier. So a couple inches up, a couple inches from the bottom, and then every however many inches this is, I'm gonna put an air hole. As big as my little step down thing will make it. So I don't want it all the way at the bottom because, soot and stuff's gonna sit there. Plus that's gonna be sitting a little bit up off the ground. So I want it to line up with those openings that I've got in that thing. See, this is I don't mean this way. That's way too far from the bottom. I mean this way. And then we're gonna put one about, now at this point, because I know this isn't perfectly flat, these aren't going to be perfectly level, so you could measure from this little point right here if you wanted to. Like once you got one started, you could say, okay, well, now I'm going to come up however many and make you a jig from here to here, and it would be perfect all the way around. But I don't really care about that. I'm just ready to be done with this. So let's do this and then drill them out. I've done about a third of them right now. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more in between each one of these. I think I was doing roughly 3 inches from the edge, something like that. Yeah, roughly 3 inches from the edge, and they're going to end up being about, these right now are about 6 inches apart. So I'm going to add another one right here and another one right here. So the whole bottom of my barrel is going to be lined with these little 1.5 inch or inch, these inch size holes. If you had bigger holes, you wouldn't have to put so many, but I don't. My step down bit that's as big as it goes. It goes from, you know, practically nothing to an inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish my holes, and after that, this thing's gonna be ready to go.
Drilling these holes was by far the hardest part of this build. Physically just having to push the barrel and hold it in place while you were doing it. Everything else is fairly easy.
All right, I've got that in. I'm gonna bend these little tabs over, maybe like 30 degrees. You can use a pair of pliers, but it's really not that hard. You just use your finger. If you didn't deburr this, I recommend putting on gloves because you do not want this in your skin. I'm gonna bend a couple of these out to give this something to keep it centered. This turn it over. There's nothing. That's also going to help to keep it. That's also going to help to keep it locked in tight too. So bring that down until it's right where you want it. All right, I think that's it. Oops. Oh. You know how I cut the top off? Well, haven't used it, so thinking keep the ash from being piled up anywhere, but that's it. The only thing left to do now is test it out. That are already bent because it's pushing it out of the way. So I'm gonna have to.
Some residual oil and paint is burning off the barrel right now, but when this thing is blazing, there really is no smoke. Or at the very least, there's way less smoke than there ordinarily would be if you were burning something on your back porch. I highly recommend doing this. I went ahead and added some legs also. I didn't like the leg configuration, so I added those little metal straps that I was using to mark out my lines. I used some self-tapping screws and added 4 of those along the bottom of the barrel. It's more sturdy this way.
Okay, I'm finished with the burn barrel. Thanks for watching. I have some tips that I wish somebody would have told me. So first of all, you're gonna need one of these step down drill bits. This only goes up to 1 inch, but it was fine. The barrel seems to be working fine. I didn't have to drill pilot holes. I mean, this worked just fine. You're gonna want the thinner. This is a 7/8 metal cutting wheel. Don't use the thicker ones. It's harder to cut through these barrels with the thicker ones. The thinner ones, I think the better, just not so thin they're gonna break. They need to be at least as thick, almost as thick as the barrel, I think. But you're gonna use several of these, so get several of them. Don't just get one. And this is called a flap disc, and it's a 60 grit flap disc. You're gonna need this for deburring things and for taking the top off your barrel. If you have a sealed barrel, when you're using this, is not gonna be good for removing the top because you're gonna need to burn through that lip on the top. And as you're doing it, use this, go through the top of the lip and sort of the inside top of the lip, and what'll happen is you'll start to expose that seam that's there, and you'll see the seam all the way around. You'll see how the barrel comes together, how the lid comes into that other spot, and it's gonna look, you're gonna be making it flat, and then it'll just start to separate like this, and you'll see the seam. And then I didn't even have to pound it out with a mallet. I thought I was recording when I did that part, but I wasn't, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But write down your instructions also on a piece of paper so you're not having to stop and go check a video and all that kind of stuff. It's better if you just write everything down. Make little templates of things that you're going to have to measure out. Make a jig, you know, anywhere where you can make a jig, make a jig. And the last thing is, I used the top part of my barrel underneath it to catch the charcoal as it burns. I was gonna attach it to it, but it has to be open down there. So I'm just gonna set it under it. That way I can pick this up, and any charcoal that's down there, I can throw it in the garden or whatever. But the main thing is the legs. I think I'm gonna rework the way I'm doing the legs. I had these little metal rods right here, and I think once I get my welder out, I'm gonna make a grate to go over this for cooking. But I think I'm gonna use these and make some different legs, get it a little bit higher up off the ground, but make some sturdier legs. I don't really care for the leg bending over the little flaps of the barrel to create legs. It just seems kind of flimsy to me. But when this first started burning, I had to burn the oil off from it because this was an oil drum. But after all the oil off, after all the smoke from the oil went away, there was like no smoke coming off the fire at all. And it was a roaring fire. And then it just burned down. It burns down pretty quick because there's a lot of air circulation, but I was using pallets. But yeah, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be good. So for the purposes of what I need. So if y'all have any questions, just ask me in the comments and I'll answer if I can. So thanks for watching. Do it with Chomp.